When we were talking about filtering and sorting database views, I mentioned that you can use filters and sorts to do things like group items in a database view based on a category or a tag. So we had keywords and we were trying to sort them based on things like informational, purchase, or take action. And we did that in a list view, grouping together the various tags or the various keywords with each tag. Notion actually has a specific feature which is dedicated to grouping elements based on a certain property. So that's what we're going to look at now, how you can group various views inside of your databases. So we're back looking at our keywords database, and we mentioned, we already have a sort on this database, which is sorting keywords based on intent. I'm going to remove that sort, and I'm going to show you how you can achieve the same thing by using Notion's native grouping function. So you can, again, use this grouping and subgrouping feature for any database view, but for this one, using a table, we're going to head in to this table view, hit Edit View, and underneath sort, you'll see there is another option for us, which is to group this table. So I'm going to hit in here. It's currently grouped by nothing, so it's just showing a single table. And like we did before, I want to group this table based on the intent tag. So I'm just going to hit intent. I can see here that intent is the property that we've used to group this table by. I also have an option to hide empty groups from this as I'm setting it up. But for now, let's just take a look at what has happened here. So remember before we had a table which achieved this exact same outcome, except it didn't give us this little toggle option for specific grouped categories of keywords. So the grouping function by default will take all of the keywords that have this particular tag attached to it, and it will create a little cluster of items for this database. You can then toggle the various groups inside of your view, and you'll also see a value which automatically counts how many items are in a specific group. Now it's worth noting that grouping databases works not just for single select, but also for multi-select. So if I head over into this intent property and I change it to a multi-select property, for now that's not going to change anything. But if I were to add multiple tags to various keywords, we would see them showing up in both groups. So that means you would actually have two copies of this particular keyword. So personal work is now showing up under both the informational group and the purchase group. So typically, I like to use grouping of tables for single use case or single select properties because that gives me the clearest overview of what's going on. You can obviously use this for tasks and various resources databases, but I think it's one of the cleanest ways to present information inside of Notion database. The grouping powers don't stop there though. So we showed how you can group keywords in a table, but what about some of these other views? And it's worth noting what's going on actually when we talk about having a Kanban board. It's actually already grouping our information based on a property. So if I head into this pipeline, edit view, I can see that the group feature already has a property, status. That's what is giving us this Kanban board based on the status of our items in the database. So whenever we create a Kanban board, there's automatically going to be a property assigned to create those column groups. You can change the main grouping factor by heading into the group property. Notion also lets you subgroup within that grouping feature, especially for Kanban boards. So if, for example, I wanted to not only have the contacts status going from left to right, but I wanted to subgroup this board in a similar way to this table, which gives me a broken up toggle list of various items within this pipeline, I can create a subgroup. So beneath group, you'll see there's an option for the database views that allow it to subgroup this pipeline. So you can see that we have some tags here, which are actually the source of this contact. Let's say I wanted to subgroup this pipeline by the source. What that's going to do is it's going to take all of the contact source options, which here are community event, a few different ones that we can tag it with, and it's going to create a subgroup within the pipeline for each of those particular subgroups. So we can look at this source freelance marketplaces as a particular source of these contacts, and within that source we have our contact status going from left to right. So you can see if I wanted to quickly just look at all of my freelance marketplace contacts and maybe my referrals and maybe my website contacts, I now have a more focused view of my pipeline, which I can then work with in the same way as before. You can also hide empty views or empty subgroups by toggling on or off this button here, and you can select which groups manually you want to show or hide from this particular view. So in the last challenge, I asked you to add a priorities property to your tasks database. Now we're going to use it. So what I want you to do is create a Kanban board view of your tasks database, and you're going to group that board view by status. So you can change the status of your task as you like, but by default, it should be not started, in progress, and done, moving from left to right. Then what I'm going to get you to do is to create a subgroup within that board view, which is going to list your tasks based on priority. So what you should have is a board which has in the top left-hand corner the things that are not started but are high priority, and in the bottom right, it should be the done tasks that are the lowest priority. So let's see if you can recreate that actions or task priority board, and I'll see you in the next video.